Well, hello everybody and welcome. Thanks for joining us here today. Well, it's almost stir about Sunday, and in our house that means just one thing. We're getting ready to make the Christmas cake.
So what is stir about Sunday?
Well, stir about Sunday is traditionally the last Sunday of the year before the beginning of Advent, the beginning of the Christmas season or the holiday season. And typically it's at the end of November. We always do it on the last Sunday in November. We call that our stir about Sunday. And it's called stir about Sunday because traditionally we would have friends and family come over to the house on that day to help us make the Christmas cake. They'd stir about the batter of the Christmas cake, and we'd stir it to the east in honour of the three wise men who went to visit Jesus in the manger on the day of his birth. But they'd also, or we would also as kids, get to make a wish while we're mixing the bowl and mixing the batter on stir about Sunday. That's where it comes from. Now, the main component of our Christmas cake is whiskey and dried fruit. You can use any dried fruit you want, but traditionally it's raisins, currants, orange peel, candied lemon peel. But currants are very hard to get here in America, so we substituted dried cranberries for our currants. So whatever dried fruits you like, you can use. We also used the zest and the juice of a whole orange and a whole lemon. And then we covered it with whiskey, we put it in the fridge for at least 24 hours, but we leave ours for 3 days. After 3 days, when the fruit mix is ready, we take it out and we begin to make the actual cake batter.
So first we start with the butter, and we are making this vegan, so we've substituted all the dairy and egg products with vegan alternatives. And then the brown sugar goes in. And these need to be beaten for a good while until they're nice and fluffy, probably 2 to 4 minutes. And then we can add the eggs. You can do this in the mixer as well. We've done it by hand to show you what's going on.
Now you have to add the eggs very slowly, otherwise they might curdle. Now if they start to curdle on you, don't panic, just add a little bit of flour and the eggs will uncurdle. But just take your time with this step. It's really important that you don't get the eggs to break and curdle on you.
And after the eggs are mixed in, we'll add the flour, the cinnamon, the ginger, allspice, nutmeg, and cloves. You can also substitute this out for 2.5 teaspoons of pumpkin spice. And then we're gonna add the baking powder and mix this together. And as you can see, it's a very thick batter for a cake, but that's the way it's supposed to be so that it has the structure to hold all the whiskey we add later.
Now we'll add the fruit. Once that's all mixed together, we get our baking tin. You can use whatever size tin you like, but traditionally it's a 9-inch round. Just make sure that you line the baking tin completely with a layer of butter, then your brown paper, coat that with another layer of butter before you put the batter in. So this is going to make our cake come out of the tin really easy and of course prevent it from sticking. Add your batter in and you bake this cake at 275 Fahrenheit or about 135 Celsius. And you bake it for a long time, 2 to 4 hours. Now, you might think that this is a really long time and a low temperature, but if you bake it at a higher temperature, the outside will burn before the inside gets a chance to set and cook. So don't try and speed up this part of the process.
Once it's done, you're gonna let it cool completely. And then it's time to take it out of the tin and poke a bunch of small holes in it. All these holes are gonna absorb the whiskey that we're gonna feed the cake with. This cake sits at room temperature for a few weeks, so the whiskey's added to preserve the cake until Christmas Day. We're gonna feed it 2 tablespoons of whiskey today, and then another 2 tablespoons on this day every week until Christmas.
And every time we take it out to feed it, we know that it's maturing because that intense Christmassy smell, the smell of the nutmeg and the cloves and the cinnamon, it all begins to waft through the house. One of our favourite parts is feeding the cake. So a few weeks later, just before Christmas, maybe just 1 or 2 days before Christmas, it's time to decorate the cake. First of all, we cover ours in marzipan. We take the marzipan out and we roll it out flat. Before we place the marzipan on the cake, we brush it with some jam or some marmalade. This gives the marzipan something to stick to, so it just doesn't slide off the cake. Put your flattened out marzipan over the entire cake and then trim it to fit the size. Now as you can see, ours has a few bits of cake in it because we had to take it off a couple of times to re-roll it, but it doesn't really matter. It's going to be covered with the icing sugar in the end. If your marzipan cracks while you're doing this, you can just damp your fingers in a little bit of water and smooth out the cracks. Next comes a layer of royal icing. Now usually royal icing includes egg whites. We're substituting the agua faba today for the egg whites. So we mix this together until it's nice and frothy, and then we add half our powdered sugar. We mix this until it's nice and smooth. And then we add in the rest of the sugar and a little bit of vanilla. If the icing is too stiff at this stage, you can just add a couple of tablespoons of water till you get it to the consistency that you want.
We lost the footage of the cake getting draped in the royal icing, but here's what it looks like after it's set for a few minutes. Then we used marzipan to decorate the top as well. We dyed a chunk of it red and made a bow out of it, as well as a few red berries. Then we dyed some of it green and cut it into leaf shapes. Then we placed those on the top of the cake, and the only thing left was to add a ribbon around the bottom. This ribbon's going to be taken off before it's eaten, so I just secured it with some tape.
Now we sliced this up and we all had a piece, of course, with a little glass of the same whiskey that you use to make the cake. And I have to say that even though it's a vegan recipe, it tasted absolutely fantastic. In fact, it brings back the childhood memories. So with that, we just want to wish you all a Merry Christmas, even if you're watching this in June. Christmas is only 6 months away. We want to wish you a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, whichever holiday you celebrate. There you have it. It's a wonderful cake, tastes exactly like the traditional Christmas cake that I grew up with. And even though this one is vegan, you can of course make it with the substitutes that we have listed in the description below. Remember, the world is a better place because you're in it. And we can do this. Well, hello everybody. Just find what you like. Right, shut up. Okay. Just find what... This should be easier than this.
It should. Then we used marzipan to decorate the top as well. I keep wanting to say I dyed a chunk of it red because I did everything for this.
Hey, I gave you the idea.
That's right.